Welcome to Module 12 of Marketing 670. Today, what we're going to talk about is integrated marketing communications. And this really falls under the second P. So we've been talking about product and product development and offerings and all that kind of stuff. Now what we're going to do is get into promotion. And promotion really is the art of communicating a message about your brand. You usually want to make sure that's very well based in that positioning that we've been talking about. And that you're delivering a clear message, again, about this idea of this is the pain point that my product solves. Here's how it solves it, and this is why, this is a good product for you to buy. All the things that we've talked about in terms of the customer journey, making sure that people understand that they have that need that you solve and that your product is the right solution for them is really the whole idea of promotion. Integrated marketing communications is just a disciplined way of thinking about this promotion. And in particular, if you think about the way businesses advertise and market their products, they are often talking to you by email, online, on a website, TV ads, maybe ads in apps. They might have billboards. They might have print ads in newspapers, etc., or magazines. Even though those aren't as popular as they once were, there's advertising everywhere. And the reality is that the marketing teams at a big company cannot control how you're going to see all those ads and emails and so forth. I can't say, well, first you're going to see a TV ad, and then you're going to get an email, and then you're going to go online and look it up on my website. I can't control that. So I need to deliver a consistent message across all of the different channels that tells a common story about this is the pain point I solve, and this is why you should use my product to solve that pain point. And so what you need is a system, a disciplined approach to marketing planning. How do I make sure that I start from my positioning and the problem that I solve, and that I deliver a meaningful message that is going to get people to do something I want them to do, which is namely buy my product. And I'm trying to get them to do that. How am I going to get them to do that? And how do I make sure that that message is delivered in a way that is consistent, recognizing that consumers will be seeing my message in multiple places, but I can't control the order in which they see those. So that's where this idea of integrated marketing communications comes from, is how do I make everything consistent? How do I make it so that all of the marketing that's happening tells a common message? By the way, that does not necessarily mean that I am going to say the exact same thing in the same way in every marketing channel, right? I may say it one way in email because that's the way emails work, and I may say it differently on a billboard because I only have, I basically have, 30 characters to work with, or whatever it is. So that is how, so it's not to say that everything has to be exactly the same, but that everything has to work together sort of as a consistent, sometimes we use the word a consistent ecosystem of communications and advertising. So the marketing planning process that you see on the left there is from a page that I put together based on the process that Kraft Foods used back in the early 2000s. Great approach. I don't know if they still use it today, but I wouldn't be surprised if they use something like it. But it was a very disciplined approach that I've used many, many times since in other companies. So the process starts with setting a business objective. And when I say business objective, what I'm referring to is like a sales objective. And Kraft had a very specific sort of rule of thumb, which was if you needed to grow your business, let's say $50 million next year, then your integrated marketing communications plan was responsible for half that. So $25 million, right? So basically you're starting with, I need to grow my business by $25 million, or it might be, I need to increase my share by, 1 point or something like that, but some business um, objective, typically tied to sales or profit, sort of a company objective. The next piece, you can see where it says strategic value target, was you needed to identify what they called a strategic value target. This is who within your audience will help you achieve that business objective. Who's going to help, which consumers are you going to focus on in order to get to that $25 million? And so now what we're going to do is actually do a mathematical exercise. The mathematical exercise works like this. And we talked about this, I think, in a previous session, but the example on the left there, you can see a little grid. It's like with sort of two dimensions. One dimension is category usage. So this would be HMLN, means heavy, medium, light, or non-users, versus brand usage. This would be heavy, medium, or light brand users. So let's use Oreo as an example. So let's say, for example, I need $25 million. And there is a group that is currently buying 10 bags of Oreos a year. There are 5 million of them. And so what I would need these people to do is to buy, is if I could get all of them to buy, let's see if I can get this right, 1 bag of Oreos per year at $5 a bag. So 100% of them to buy 1 bag per year, I would get to $25 million. If the cost of a bag is $5, right? So the problem with that is getting 100% of any group of people to do anything is almost impossible. So I'm really not likely to be able to get people who are buying 10 bags a year to buy 11 bags a year, and get every single one of these people to buy that extra bag a year. It's going to be really hard. So I might say, well, if I could get 50% of them to buy 2 bags a year, that would be pretty good, right? The problem is getting 50% of a group of people is still hard to do. So maybe I say 10%, but now I need to get people who are buying 10 bags a year to buy another 10 bags a year. That's not very realistic. So that group, while interesting, is not probably a group that I would want to target. Another example of a group that I might not want to target is, let's say I have a group of people that don't buy any cookies at all during the year. And you say, well, let's say there's 50 million of them or something like that. I don't need that. If I could just get, a bunch of them to buy, 2 bags of Oreos a year, that'd be great, except that they don't buy cookies, right? And so what is it that's stopping them from buying cookies? It's unlikely that somebody is, I'm going to be able to convince somebody that literally never buys cookies to buy cookies. So that's not a good group. But there might be some other group sort of in one of those middle boxes that's sort of a, medium user. Maybe they're medium users of Oreo, but heavy users of the category. And so, I need to get, say 10% of them to buy 1 more bag a year, and I can get to my $25. That's a good group to look at. So the things that I'm trying to understand is, if I need to get everybody to do something, that's not a good group. If I need to get a fraction of people to do something that's unrealistic, like buy 10 more bags a year, double the number of bags they're buying a year, that's probably not realistic. But if I can find a group where I'm like, mathematically speaking, I just need some, 10% of this group to buy 1 more bag a year, that's probably pretty reasonable, especially if they are already buying some. So let's say they're buying 3 or 4 bags a year. I'm trying to get them to 5 bags a year, and their category usage is pretty high, right? So they buy 20 bags of cookies a year. 3 or 4 of those are Oreo. Trying to just convince them to switch one of those additional purchases to Oreo is probably realistic. So that's what I mean by mathematically. I'm going to do some real analysis, and what I'm going to do is identify usually about 3 groups, maybe 4, within this grid that seem like good potential targets for my advertising. The next thing I'm going to do now that I've identified those is I'm going to define my marketing objectives and my marketing objective. And craft only allowed you to pick one of three. You could either focus on frequency, market penetration, or share. Frequency means I'm buying 3 bags a year. But I want you to buy 4. So I'm going to increase your frequency. Penetration is would be I'm trying to get a group of people that aren't buying any to buy one or multiple, which it tends to be a harder thing to do, trying to get people who aren't using your product to use your product. It's typically more common for a new product, something you're trying to drive trial, trying to get people that, or sometimes maybe you have users that used to buy the product and you're trying to get them to buy it again. And then the last one was share, or sometimes they call it share of requirements. This is that sort of like you're buying, I don't know, Coke, and I'm Pepsi. I'm not trying to increase your usage of cola. I'm just trying to get you to switch between one of your times that you bought Coke to buy Pepsi, one of those times. So that would be share. Most common in packaged goods with brands that are well known and have been around for a while, the most common is frequency. Because most often what you're trying to do is just figure out, how do I get people to buy one more time. So now that I've done this, I need to articulate the challenge of what's called the marketing challenge, which is, why doesn't my target do what I want them to do? And it's at this point that I typically am going to do. So why is it that people who are buying these 3 bags a year don't buy 4 bags a year? How do I get them over that barrier that's stopping them from doing this again, and or adding that additional purchase? And so this is where I will probably do some focus group work, where I go and I talk to consumers. And remember, I said I might have 3 or 4 groups. I'm going to go talk to all of these different groups. And I think I shared previously that what happened when we did this with Oreo was we went into groups, and the first group was sort of older empty nesters who used to buy more Oreos and were buying fewer Oreos. And when we talked to them, we sort of came to the realization we can't convince these people to go back to buying the same number of bags of Oreos as they used to, because their kids have left the house. So it turned out that what was mathematically a good potential communication target was actually not really a good target, because the barrier that we needed to overcome, that is their kids had left the house, wasn't something that Oreo I can't make the kids go back to the house, right? But there was another group, I think I may have mentioned previously, who was it was mostly moms of sort of small kids, and they felt like there was too much junk food in the house, and so they were trying to cut back on junk food, and so they had actually reduced the number of bags of Oreos that they were buying. And what we heard from them was, yeah, Oreos junk food, I don't want to bring it in the house as much. But we also heard from them that they really loved Oreos because Oreos helped them get their kids to drink milk. So that was really interesting to us, because we're like, we wonder if we can use that as a communication strategy. Oreo helps get your kids to drink milk as a way of overcoming the barrier. They didn't want to buy an additional bag of Oreos because they felt it was junk food, but could we overcome that by saying, hey, we know this isn't great for you, but it does get your kids to do something that you really want them to do. So let's start talking about that. So that leads us into the next part, which is the communication goal. And the communication goal is define what it is that your communication must get this group of consumers to think. And in this case, I want them to think that Oreos are a great way to get my kids to drink milk. That's what I'm trying to get them to think. And then I need to define what it is that my communication needs to get them to do. And this is sort of the desired actions. So I want them to buy an extra bag of Oreos. I want them to pour glasses of milk and put them next to those Oreos so that the kids are drinking milk. I want them to teach their kids to dunk Oreos or play, twist and lick and whatever the Oreos and whatever it is, because I want them to experience the fun and excitement and whatever, and the interest that this creates in milk when they do this, so that every time they think, oh, I can't get my kids to drink milk, they think, oh, I need to get some Oreos. So that's what the communication must do. And then what Kraft did was they said, let's develop what they call a tasks and tools grid. So if my tasks are, I need to get them to pick up a bag of Oreos, I need to get them to put milk in front of the kids, and I need to teach the kids to, sort of play, the play value of, the ritual of eating Oreos. So those are the 3 tasks. The tools would be how all of the marketing channels and the ways I'm going to do this. So those marketing channels could be, I'm going to put TV ads on air that show kids eating their Oreos with milk, twisting and licking and dunking, right? I might have, I might want to do some trade programming where I actually do sampling in stores, where I actually have, sometimes we would do Oreo stacking contests, or and you'd be serving milk and Oreos, or you'd have people doing sampling with Oreos and milk together and whatever. But everything has to, again, speak to this idea of Oreos and milk. You'll see, not in this particular presentation, but in the next session, I'll show you some of the things that Oreo did in terms of actually putting splashes of milk on their packaging. So all of this stuff is really designed to, how do I create this connection between Oreos and milk? And then the last piece would be that at this point now I'm going to create a marketing calendar. So I'm not going to, so when am I going to be on TV advertising? When am I going to be doing digital advertising? How am I going to change the message? Is the message in January going to be the same message that I deliver in July? Not necessarily. So I'm going to build a whole calendar of, here's all the things that I'm going to do and I'm going to say. And then what we often would do is take all of that and put in what's called a spider diagram. And I will share with you a spider diagram in the next session. But the spider diagram basically was just a graphical depiction of all the things that we were going to be doing around the brand. And this was just a way of putting everything on one page, so I can take a look at it as like, are all these things delivering a common message? So what I want to see is not necessarily that everything is exactly the same, but I want to see Oreos and milk everywhere. Pictures of Oreos with milk, pictures of people dunking, the packaging with the milk splashes on it, so that I'm looking at it and say, does my whole communication deliver on this message of Oreo helps get your kids to drink milk? So you can see how going through this very disciplined process is a way of making sure that your marketing communications, because there's so many different places where you're communicating, hang together and work as a whole. So I wanted to share with you the story of Twizzlers advertising when I was working on the Twizzlers brand at Hershey Company. So I went to the Hershey Company after I left Kraft Nabisco, and I took that process that I just described with me, and was working. My team and I worked on doing that mathematical exercise to understand how we were trying to grow Twizzlers. We had a very lofty Twizzler growth goals, and we were trying to figure out how do we came to a marketing objective of increasing frequency, because we had a bunch of people who were buying, say, whatever, 5 bags a year of Twizzlers, and we wanted them to, we figure if we could get them to buy 6, we could get where we needed to go. And so we used that methodology to identify a couple of groups, and then went off and did focus groups and asked people, what was the, trying to understand what was the barrier to why they weren't buying Twizzlers more often. And what we discovered in those focus groups was that people thought of Twizzlers for 2 specific occasions. One occasion was for eating candy at the movies, particularly because Twizzlers are quiet. There's not crunching. And so great candy, very quiet, great candy. They're a little bit playful. You can sort of, play with the Twizzlers with your hands and whatever, but but they're quiet, and which is great for the movie theater. So people thought about it as movie theater candy. And then the other thing they thought about it was for summer road trips. People associate Twizzlers with summer road trips. The reason is because you can't really keep chocolate in the middle of the summer. You're driving around, whatever, it's super hot, and chocolate melts in the car. Like when you get out and stop and whatever, it's gonna melt. So Twizzlers is a great candy to sort of bring with you to the beach, to bring with you on a road trip, and so forth. So those are the two occasions, and the barrier was that people were like, well, I just don't do those things very often, so I don't need Twizzlers very often. So my very smart manager that worked for me said, well, what if we focused on for at least on this movie thing, is recognizing that people don't just watch movies in the movie theater, they also watch movies at home, on their television screens. And so that's where the campaign that you see a picture of, I'm going to show you the ad in a second, but you can see a picture of this campaign on the screen there, of and the campaign was called Twizzlerize. And basically what we did was we created ads that were basically scenes from classic movies. In this case, you can see the scene from King Kong, where King Kong is at the top of the Empire State Building. So classic movie, recreated it completely out of Twizzlers, which really featured the product, created appetite appeal, but also really talked to this idea of, hey, whether you're watching movies on the big screen, meaning in the movie theater, or at home, where you're watching, say, classic movies or whatever, that Twizzlers is a great candy to eat. And so I'm going to see if I can share my screen. All right, so hopefully this is going to work.
From silver screens to flat screens, Twizzlerize your entertainment every day with Twizzlers, the twist you can't resist.
So hopefully that worked. If not, I will drop the link in this week's module, so that you have the link to the ad. So you can see sort of how this idea came together of, we were trying to increase frequency, we worked through the strategy, we understood what the barrier was, and we came up with this basic idea of, that Twizzlers was great, this great candy for however you were watching movies, whether it was at home or in the theater. And then everything we did was built around this idea of connecting Twizzlers to the movies. Actually, in the summer, we would actually connect it to both road trips and the movies. We had ads that used the song from the movie Grease, called, the song's called Summer Lovin', and it was a scene on a beach, all Twizzlerized, and things like that. So always that connection to movies, but also in the summer we would connect it to road trips or on the beach, etc. So just to sort of summarize for this one, promotion is a disciplined process. You must take into account who you are talking to and what behavior you want your target to take in order to build your content strategy. Strategy also considers where your audience is and how much money you have and where you can most effectively deliver your message. And we will talk more about that in coming sessions. But the budget is really important. So once you've defined all of the the barriers you're trying to overcome, budget comes into play, right? I can't necessarily be solid block on TV all the time, because I may not have enough money. So I may have to sort of use some of my dollars in there. I use some of my dollars to do programs in the stores. I might use some of my dollars to use digital advertising. So how you spread your budget out is also, and trying to create this sort of surround sound of a common message is also an important piece of the puzzle.